Welcome home to St. Anne's. Please be seated. We want you to know that you're welcome to join us at 10 a.m. on Sundays. Please be sure to hit subscribe to receive our sermons. We can't wait to meet you. Goodness gracious, I didn't expect anyone to be in church today. I'm not going to lie to you. I just assumed y'all take today off. And I would understand if you did. So if you did and you're at home, God bless you. I completely understand. Because the reality is, anyone else exhausted from trying to be a Christian right now? Are you? And do you feel like there's a meme about pregnancy, and it's like, I feel like it was worse and it's about to get worser. And do you feel like that this week? It's been worse. It's about to get worser. So God bless you for being willing to try. Because really that's all we got. All we can do is try. And so if you are struggling this week, because I think most of America is, wherever you land on wherever, it's tough right now. It's just really, really tough. And so I think our readings today are a great reminder of what we are called to do. Because you feel like you've been like going overboard. You're just like going. You're like, if I don't do enough, what if it all messes up? Like, what if this happens? What if this happens? What if this happens? What if it does? What if your greatest fear happens? What if my greatest fear happens? It could. It very well might. And I will tell you this, it's happened before. And the Christian faith is better for it happening. The reality is we are at our very best when we are struggling. It doesn't feel that way. It feels rotten and terrible and awful. But the reality is, sometimes you and I have to be reminded to go back to basics. And that's been the reality for those seeking God for all of eternity. Sometimes we have to be reminded to go back to basics. And I know there are churches all over the United States who are going to tell you how to vote today. I will tell you, vote. Vote. It is so important. One of your number one duties as a Christian is to live out your faith. And one of the ways that we do that is on the ground every day. It is not something that we just do on Sunday or something that we just talk about every once in a while. Maybe we have a tattoo or we put a little cute sign up in our house somewhere that says, live, laugh, love. That's a Midwestern favorite. But it's actually something that should impact our every decision, okay? And please understand it goes this way. Our faith impacts our every decision. Our politics and what other people tell us do not impact our faith. Please understand that very, very clearly, because it is so easy for that to get warped. And when it gets warped, it gets ugly. And if you don't believe me, study history real fast. It won't take you long to realize what happens when man controls faith. But when God controls faith and faith controls our decisions, that's when things get better. And I hope to God that that's what you choose to do this week. Now, how you choose to do that, it's going to look different for everyone in the room, and that's okay. I know it doesn't always feel like that, right? You're like, if you don't believe my way, then clearly you should burn in hell. No, absolutely not. Because the reality is we're all wrong. We just are. We do our absolute best to seek out Christ and how we should live our lives. But to be honest, we've all got it a little bit wrong. And so that's why we do it as a community. We do it collectively. And we live and we do our absolute best. But I'm here to tell you, sometimes it doesn't go the way we wanted. And sometimes it does go the way we wanted. And when it goes the way we wanted, just as when it goes not the way we wanted, we are called to live in grace and truth and faith and love, okay? So whatever happens, because we're not going to know on Wednesday, let's be real. That's a cute idea, but we're not. Whatever happens, and there are 2 big elections going on in our world this week. We have the U.S. election this week, but we also have our bishop election on Saturday. There's a lot. Let me tell you, come Sunday, I'm going to want a scotch, and I can't have one, so everybody give me a big hug next Sunday, because, woo-wee, I don't know how I'm going to get through this week, but we're going to do it. We're going to do it, and we're going to do it in faith, love, and grace. So when Jesus comes to them, because remember, everybody loves a good rule. We love good rules. We love rules best that apply to other people, right? So those are the best rules. My faves. My faves are the ones that apply to you, not to me. So they're like, well, like, how do we do this? And God continuously says, you love me and you love one another. And they're like, but no, we need more than that. Like, we want lots of rules. Because if you give us lots of rules, then we have lots of ways to mess up, right? And we have all these little loopholes. And God says to them again, love me, love one another. And they're like, no, that's not enough. We don't like those rules. Tell us some more. Do you feel like we ever do that in our society? I feel like we do that as Christians. We're like, well, we want some rules. You go to a church for the first time, and you're like, what do you do to join this church? And again and again, people come to this church, and they're like, so how do I join the Episcopal Church? I'm like, you come. Like, do I have to sign, like a faith, a treatise or whatever? No, you come. Well, how do I join? You come. You join together in the family. That's how we live together, right? It really comes down to 2 things. Jesus is very, very clear, and God has been very, very clear since the beginning of time. How do we do this? We love God. We love one another. The rest of the rules that you and I come up with really stem out of those. And I know we like to go to Leviticus to beat people up, but please understand, Leviticus was not created to beat people up. It really wasn't. It was really created to say, okay, how do we love God and how do we love one another? And so it was different rules that the community came up with really coming out of that. And in that time, in that place, the rules there made sense. Give me a Leviticus that you feel like you've been attacked with. You've heard them. Don't act like you haven't been like thrown a Leviticus line. Like mixed cloths. Yes, that's a fun one. Okay. So purity, remember at that time when you don't have the medical system that we have today, when you don't understand germs and all those different things, purity laws matter. Because purity is about keeping things clean and separate, all right? It is not about rules and stuff like that. It's about how, as a community, do we live together. Let's go back to COVID real fast. Why did we wear masks? Not to beat each other up, but we wore masks to keep our germs to ourselves so we weren't spreading them to other people. It was a purity culture thing. Not purity culture as in you are bad and different and other, but purity as in I might be unhealthy for you. And therefore, I will do things to keep you safe, to keep things separate. So that's a purity thing. Does that make sense? So mixed cloths, not eating pork, certain purification rituals, especially with women, blood, wounds, things like that, were really about how to keep things clean and how to make sure that my germs stay with me and I don't make you sick. Okay? A lot of the Leviticus laws are about how we treat one another, like how we treat the alien in our midst. We are called to welcome the alien in our midst as one of ours. So love your neighbor as yourself. Does that make a little bit of sense? Okay, so when we come together as a community, sometimes we make rules that ought to come out of loving God and loving one another, but sometimes those rules take on their own power or control. Does that make sense? And they become the God unto themselves. And that's a problem. Because the same thing happens when politics become that to us. When politics become rules and control and ways of abusing one another, we've missed the point. Because politics and laws and how we govern and live in community are about how we care for one another. And at the end of the day, how we care for one another is how we love God. It's that simple. And frankly, that complex. Because how I love God and show that I love you might look a little bit different than how you love God and show that you love me. But it will always come out of loving God. Always, always, always. And when it doesn't, when it comes out of loving self, when it comes out of power and control, it will always go wrong. Always. So whatever you do this week, whatever choices you make, I beg you, come to a place of love. Come from a place of love. Remember that your Creator created you and calls you to love. Calls you to love all of creation. And if it doesn't look like love, it ain't God.
We want you to know that you're welcome to join us at 10 a.m. on Sundays. Please be sure to hit subscribe to receive our sermons. We can't wait to meet you.
So in other words, don't post that meme that you feel tempted to post.